Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
A knowledge of self. If we could be cured of our slave mentality that was indoctrinated into us during slavery, we would realize that just as the white man can do these things for himself and his kind, we can get together in unity and harmony and do the same thing for ourselves and our kind.
Yo, welcome to another episode of the Blueprint for Black Power podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brother Dre. With me, I got my brother Tazamak Zarai, my brother Rashad Sekou. How you guys doing today?
Going on.
Alrighty, we are back for another episode of the podcast. Last week, we had covered legitimate power, and we went into some of the ways that the European uses his positions of authority, such as being a president or being in the military or the just a work environment structure, what have you, to create a system where you're complicit with the authority. You're well aware of giving the European this position of power. For example, if you vote a president or a politician or what have you, and because you're aware of that power relationship, you willingly allow this person to have power over you, and you're more complicit with their instructions or what have you. So we covered that last week, and we're getting close to the end of the first chapter. So here it is. We're on episode 8, and now we are going into the or getting to the last part of the chapter itself. So we have manipulation as power to cover today, and then closing out next week we'll be doing our summary, which is white domination and black subordination. But right now we want to focus on manipulation as power and what does that mean. And this is a short section, but I really think, and I'm sure you brothers might agree, that this was a powerful section because the whole thing about manipulation is it has to go unnoticed. You know what I mean? The other forms of influence that we talked about, whether we're dealing with force or coercion, even competent and legitimate authority, and in many ways, even influence, can oftentimes are forms of power that are very noticeable. Perhaps influence can be a little more subtle, but at the same time, like I said, sometimes that's even noticeable, more so than manipulation, where it's all about the subtlety, it's all about the cover-up, and making a person comply without realizing that they're being complicit. And even if they do realize that they're being complicit, as he states in the second paragraph, even if they realize that they're being complicit, sometimes they might be under the impression that it's for their benefit. Because again, the manipulator is controlling the information, so the manipulator can make it look like this is something that's going to value you and it's not going to hurt you. One thing that comes to mind is really what's going on with a lot of the propaganda with the COVID-19 and the vaccine and what's surrounding all of that. There's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of propaganda that's going on. We all know that never has there been a time where, you see people states giving lottery tickets with a pot up to $5 million for people that get vaccinated, or you got things where people are going out and giving free joints or free donuts. They're giving out money, giving out Super Bowl tickets, giving out concert tickets. They're doing all of these things to persuade people to do something that they probably would not do under different circumstances where they had time to research what they're injecting into their body or what have you. But people comply because they believe that what's being sold to them is for their best interest. It's to protect them. It's to make them healthy. But again, because you're able to manipulate this situation, no one's really doing a thorough investigative research and checking all the information on them on their own before agreeing to comply with these instructions to go get vaccinated, what have you. They're just like, okay, this is what I was told to do, and this is the information that was presented before me. This is the situation that I'm looking at. People are dying, what have you, what have you. And so that's all they need to go on in order for them to be manipulated. So they feel as though they're making the choice on their own based on the facts, like we had the conversation with, certain people before, and they say, well, I'm making my information based on facts, but the facts are all coming from one source, and that's the manipulator himself, who's controlling the facts and controlling the information to guide you and manipulate you in the way that you think. So I thought that was particularly interesting. And there were 2 points that I wanted to bring out. And then I don't know if you brothers want to jump in or what have you, feel free. But the latter part of this manipulation as power on the page that it begins on, which is really the bottom or the middle part, of the 22nd page. But at the bottom is where we begin, but we're really going to focus on the 23rd page. But to quote the book, it says, Wrong notes 2 important general forms where manipulation may occur. In the first, the power holder may exercise concealed control over the power subject through symbolic communications designed to make veiled suggestions, to limit or determine selectively the power subject's information supply, or to inculcate without appearing to do so certain positive or negative attitudes. So this one right here, this is a direct relationship more or less with the manipulator themselves, where the manipulator is giving you information again, and you think that this might be beneficial to you. You're not really aware of the play. You're not aware of the manipulation because they're doing so in a very subtle and skilled way. The thing that comes to mind is a lot of advertising. I mean, that's what advertising is all about. It's all about the subtle messages that you give in an advertisement. And that's the very reason why you have marketers that go to school and learn psychology and learn how, the body responds to different chemical reactions, because the marketer is really allowed to manipulate these things indiscriminately. You know what I'm saying? They know how you think, they know what produces dopamine and what causes certain reactions. And then they know how to show you the right sound, or the right sounds, the right colors, the right environments to manipulate these things. I was, not to go on too long, but I was actually reading this CIA declassified document the other day, and they were going into hypnosis. And I remember reading this a while ago about hypnosis and how it works, but really with a hypnotist, the way they hypnotize is they have to shut down the left side of your brain first. The left side of your brain is your rational, critical thinking side. And what a lot of people don't realize is everything is filtered through your left side of your brain before it reaches the right side of the brain, which is considered to be your more creative, more carefree side. So the right brain is what is able to abstract from your memory, your logical thinking. Your left side of your brain abstracts from your memory, your logical thinking, and all of that, and filters all that information before it goes to the right side of the brain. So a hypnotist, what they do is they use suggestive languages and techniques to get you to kind of shut down that left side of the brain, because the right side of the brain doesn't have those filters. The right side of the brain is kind of like, come on in, whatever, it's carefree. They're not trying to, what is this? Do I need to watch this? Is this bad information? Is this good information? The right side of the brain is just passive. So it just says, it takes whatever instruction you give it, right? So if you say, hey, bark like a chicken, the right side of the brain is like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll bark like a chicken. The left side of the brain is like, no, of course I'm not going to do that, because I'm taking into account the environment, the context. Why do you want me to bark like a chicken? You know what I'm saying? The left side of the brain is your filter. The right side of the brain is passive. And the reason why I bring this up in marketing is because that's how the images work. Like we talk all the time. You can show people data all you want. That's the left side of the brain. People are using the left side of the brain. You don't want them to do that. That's why you use comedy and you use images, because that gets people to let the left side down. And now you're more open to receive the right side of the brain. The right side of the brain just takes in the images. That's all day long. And that's why you can manipulate somebody better and quicker with images than you can with a bunch of factual data, because the left side of the brain is just, it's a filter. But yes. You know what I'm saying? And I say all that to say marketers, manipulators, they understand that more than you do. They understand that hypnotism is real. They know the technique. They know how it works. And you better believe that marketers are like, okay, how do we hypnotize our potential clients? oh, we need to get them to stop using the left brain. Well, what type of information makes people use the left brain? Well, if you show them a bunch of data and a bunch of copy, they're going to read and want to investigate all day long. That's not going to work. But if you make people happy, if you show them images, and totally different response. And so again, this is all being used against people without their awareness. This is what advertising is all about. You know what I mean? And by doing that, you can get people to do certain things and think certain ways without them even realizing. So that was the first thing. But the last thing was when he says here, going back to that second paragraph in the 23rd page, but an equally widespread kind of manipulation occurs where A alters B's environment in such a way as to evoke a desired response from B without interacting directly with B at all. And that to me is extremely powerful, because that is basically the American capitalist system that we live in, where your entire environment is controlled to the point where you don't even realize that your desires, your opinions, your wants, your needs, all of that's controlled. You know what I mean? You go to work because you've been programmed to do that. That's what you were programmed to do ever since you were a child. That's what school was all about, teaching you how to take instructions from an employer so that you can be an employee and you can go out there and you can work the system. You know what I'm saying? And all of this, like I said to you brothers before, is geared towards serving capitalism, because you want to breed people to be consumers. You want them to grow up, get jobs, pay bills, buy products, and consume until they die. And so you have to control and manipulate the way that people think. And most importantly, you have to control the environment itself, control what they aspire to, control what they learn, control what they're entertained by, control what their desires and their needs are. All of that you tweak and control by controlling the environment. So that to me means manipulation it's crazy, man.
I totally agree with that, because again, when you talk about the environment, it's so subtle, like we like to use, because you don't even know you're in the environment you're in. Okay, now when you talk about the environment, and Brother Amos makes a good point about that, because again, he talks about, you're locked in this box. You don't realize that. So when we talk about things like redlining, if you're not aware of what that is, then you don't really understand why you can't, as a Black person, get a loan from the bank to get this housing. Okay, you don't understand that if you look, who controls the water, who controls the electricity, who controls the food, like all that stuff is controlled by somebody other than us, and you don't realize that because it's very convenient. See, so I like when you talk about the environment, because again, that's what makes us act the way we act, and we don't realize that we don't have any power because again, we're comfortable and we're being manipulated.
Right. And I see that too as being key, what you just said, as far as the way we act. You know what I mean? Because that really is, all the choices that we make are really designed on our upbringing, are the system that we live in, the system that we serve. So when I get up in the morning and I get dressed and I go to work and I do my job and I get out of work and I go shopping, I buy the groceries and I desire the new TV because my old one isn't big enough anymore, and I get the new car because my old car isn't nice enough anymore. All these things, I feel like I'm making these choices, but I'm really not. I'm serving this environment that was created for me and kind of programmed me to have these desires and ambitions that I have. And it's all that I know. I can't even think outside of that environment. What is life like without me living on the capitalist system? You know what I mean? What if I decided not to serve this system anymore? If I decided I didn't want to be consumed by these material things anymore, what is my life going to look like? No one really imagines that and can't really imagine that because the system has you trapped. You don't have to go to work if you don't want to, but those bills ain't going to stop.
Right.
So what are you going to do then? You're chained, even though you don't really, even though the chains are invisible and you can move around and dance around and do what you want, you're still chained to the system itself.
And Brother Amos Wilson makes that point because he says, you don't realize it, but even looking at TV, and again, he wrote this book back in the 90s, but it's still current right now in 2021, because he says, if you look at the images, you'll start to see images that look like you. So when we start looking at recent commercials, we'll see images that look like a black man or a black woman. And guess what? It goes right past the logical brain and it says, hey, I want that phone. I need to be on social media. I need it. So again, it's entertaining us. So we say, okay, well, that's fun. I need a new phone anyway. You really probably don't need a new phone, but you want to get one anyway because it's a great deal on buy one, get the other one free, you see. But we don't catch those little things that the marketers are doing to us. And again, we're consumers. So we're just consuming, but all the power is not us. We don't own AT&T. We don't own the phone company. We don't own any of the companies. So again, we're consuming things. And I think they're playing us because, when we want to speak about something, if we don't have any power of the companies that we buy from, then how can we say we don't want this to happen?
Exactly.
So it's just those small things in marketing that we sit back and see on the TV screen and don't realize it's happening to us.
Yeah. And you said something really interesting too, because we talk about not owning anything. And when you really think about it, we don't. At this point, you really don't own anything. Even if you have a house, you have a car, because you're buying all this stuff on credit, that's the new wealth of today. It's not about how much you actually own or possess. It's all about how worthy you are to borrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's all about, this whole credit system, but they want it to be that way. They don't want you to own anything. They want you to serve the system, because if I own my house outright, I'm not really tied to the system. I can quit my job or whatever my house is paid for. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm paying a mortgage for the next 30 years, I'm a slave for the next 30 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Brother Amos Wilson takes us through this chapter. The way he takes us through this chapter is even genius, because he knows what he's doing. Okay, he starts at the power of force, and then we talk about coercion. Then we talk about the authoritative power. So he takes us through all these things to the very last one. This is the most subtle, which is manipulation. Because again, if you talk to somebody that doesn't understand this, they'll be like, "I'm not being manipulated." And you can tell. Guess what? If you live the same way I do, of course you're being manipulated, but you have to open your eyes and see it. And that's what the beauty of this book is. And that's why we're going through it so slow, because we want you to understand the system that we're in. It's almost like we talk about the matrix, but you don't realize the system. That's what makes the system work. Because if you knew, back in the day, if you knew you were getting poked with a poker, you'd be like, okay, I see what they're doing to me. Okay. Right. If you were in an interrogation room and you see that the man's keep you in there 12 hours, won't let you use the bathroom, you understand what's going on. But when it's manipulation and it's on the TV that you paid for in your house, you don't even see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's crazy too is, like you said, when everybody is going through the same thing and doing the same thing, nothing seems wrong.
It's normal.
If I look around and everybody's doing what I'm doing, what do you mean that this ain't normal? You know what I mean? Even to the point where if everybody was getting prodded with the iron, if everybody's getting prodded, then there's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
This is normal. This is life.
Simple. Yeah, this is life. This is life. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And so that's the thing where we see, even in we're guilty of it. The young people are guilty. We're all guilty of it. When we see everybody's on their phone for an extended period of time, to the point where you're not even conversing with a man or woman, dude, that's manipulation, because your phone is that important to you. So again, it's very subtle. But again, we're being fooled. But again, once we realize our power as we go through this book, we'll flip it around.
Exactly. And now I love that point that you bring, because that is a form of social distancing before we even really became very familiar with social distancing. But what you're talking about with the phones, you know what I mean? Where you can have a bunch of people in an environment, but that don't know each other. And everybody, instead of intermingling nowadays, everybody kind of goes for their phone. That's the new security blanket. We all do it. You reach into your pocket. Let me see what's, there's nothing going on. Ain't nobody called you. You ain't got no messages. You just like, let me scroll through my Instagram or whatever, because that's your security blanket. Right. You do that and you're still being social in your own way, right? Because you're connecting with these virtual friends that you got all over the place, but you're less inclined to actually have an interaction with somebody else. And this is important because this is a form, realize it or not, of population control. Because the more you're actually mingling with people, they do the numbers. They know the more social interactions you have, the more physical interactions you have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that relates specifically, again, because we're talking about us. I mean, we're on a global level, but we're talking about Black people in general. I mean, specifically. Okay.
Right.
But when you have a bunch of Black people that are not intermingling, that makes it to where, guess what? They're not socializing, which means, guess what? You cannot understand each other, which means there's no love, which means there's no creation. So they have it mapped out very well. And again, the book is going to show us exactly how to flip it around.
Exactly. And that's the key. That's the key to it, is how do you take this information and realize how it's being used against you? Because you got to be aware of it first. If you don't, like we're talking about, if you don't even know you're being manipulated, you're not going to know to resist anything. But once you become aware and say, wait a minute, I'm being manipulated. Now, like we're talking about, Amos Wilson is bringing out, you're right. Gives you a plan of what you need to do. But the first thing is awareness. Right. Because if you're not aware, you're not even going to try to do anything whatsoever. But there was some going to the, I know we're kind of jumping a bit, but the third paragraph, Kenyatte, I know you said that you wanted to bring out something at that, not the third paragraph. I guess it would be it is the third paragraph.
I'll get to the part where I want to say my part on that though. But when we're talking about manipulation, you know what I'm saying, especially like what it says right here, may involve the most dehumanized, and as far as we are concerned, perhaps the most dehumanizing exercise of power of all, meaning over, like Rashad was just saying a few minutes ago, our brother Amos, writing his book, how he started off with all these other powers, you know what I mean? And he ends off with manipulation being the last one, being the most heaviest one of them all, dehumanized. To do something like that, to be dehumanized. For me personally, I've never liked anything pertaining to manipulation, even though we're all involved in it. You know, we do things to get our way. However, you know what I'm saying, it's about what you're really trying to get and what you'll really do to a person. And this right here, you know, where we're just breaking down how, you know, so many of us, I mean, there's not a person you can't limit, separate from this. Like when we were talking earlier, you know, when you guys were talking about the ads, you know what I mean, I was seeing certain things going through my mind and stuff like that. Whereas, okay, I can see why these insurance companies, they're always trying to show something funny, because what else can you do to make a person want to decide to get involved with some damn insurance?
Exactly.
But another one that really bothers me the most, and I don't know how many people are going to agree with what I have to say right here, but in a sense, a lot of these commercials now where they're coming off where men are dressing up as women and being funny, and they might not even be gay, but it's the fact that you're trying to manipulate my mind as to accepting this in some kind of way, that being gay or being out the ordinary like this, it's all right, it's okay, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, if we're all doing the same thing, why? What makes it look unnormal?
Exactly.
Very good point. Very good point.
That's a very good point.
Again, it's the manipulation, like Sharif is saying, because again, if it's on TV, it's still the end result is the same. You still want that to be some type of population control. So again, you're targeting the Black man by having that image. And again, there's nothing wrong with the image, but are you influencing young people that have not yet made their own decision?
And the answer to that is absolutely, because it goes back to you understand what the image does. The image is going to go right past the left side of the brain and get absorbed without any sort of critical judgment or what have you by the right side of the brain. You're just absorbing that information, especially if you're a child.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have no filters. You have nothing to go on, really. You're just boom. So we know what that's about. You're trying to program people to behave and think a different way. And like you had brought out a good point as far as, once again, the fact that we see so many Black men being portrayed on TV as homosexual caters to the idea of population control, where you're trying to manipulate Black men to behave a certain way because you want to really kind of manipulate those numbers and keep them down. And you want less Black men mating with women, period, really. You know what I mean? And then, like we had talked about the other day, we see the reverse side of that with the interracial relationships, specifically where you're seeing more white males with Black women. Again, people think, oh, this is just, coincidence. Nothing is coincidental when it comes to TV. They sit in boardrooms, they discuss, they plan, they plot. Nothing is coincidental. When you're casting a show, you pick your actors according to what you desire, what the message that you're trying to convey. That's what you do all day long. So it's not coincidence. These things are being set up intentionally to ingrain or instill certain ideas.
Yes.
And when I was growing up as a kid, the majority of commercials, everything on TV was predominantly white. Didn't matter if it was a show or if it was a commercial, predominantly white. Today, a lot of that is being switched up. I mean, you're seeing a lot more Black shows, Latino shows, even some Asian shows, and you're seeing these very diverse commercials. But at the same time, there's certain commercials that you target. That's how you put that message out and how you want things to look. You've got Black men at the forefront of like, we run this whole gay thing.
Right.
You totally have the Black. I've seen more Black men, gay men in commercials than I have just Black regular men. Why is that?
Exactly.
And it's not even that it's a gay commercial. It's just a commercial.
Right.
You know what I mean? It could be a McDonald's commercial, but it doesn't matter. I mean, why shouldn't it just be the fault? I mean, if it's McDonald's and before it used to be wholesome, me, the children, the wife, hey, we stop there, grab a burger and a drink and a fry. What a happy family day. Now today it ain't that. It's diverse. I mean, I'm saying, guys see me boogie and woogieing with my other male mate, and we want a Big Mac.
Right.
Or I go home and get the Big Mac. You know what I mean?
And you make it extremely clear too, where you're not even subtle anymore. They'll be holding hands, they'll be kissing, you know what I mean? It's the whole nine,
Right.
It's the whole nine.
And it's just it's on a broader scale now. It's on a much broader scale today.
Right.
Where, it's hard to, it's in a sense of making it much more harder for you to be able to sit down with the children and say that that's not right.
Right. And you can't with the newer generation, because again, they're being raised in a society where, again, they're being exposed to these things in the program so much that they're not going to agree with you. They're going to say, oh, you just don't understand. You're old. This is a different day and age,
Exactly.
And the marketers, Sharif brought up a point many weeks ago, because again, we all grew up in the same generation, same time, but certain commercials were not even on at certain times, because again, you knew children were up and watching television.
Right.
So, but now you got the internet where they can open up an iPad and just see an advertisement on YouTube, and you just can't prevent that, because again, the marketers know, like you said, Andre, the marketers know who they're going to cast. Okay, now they know they know what time they're going to put it on TV, on the internet, because that's what the children are on. But again, at that point, you can't even say, okay, well, this is not normal, because it's being shown to them over and over repeatedly. So again, we're under the assault. But if we're not aware of that, and again, Brother Amos Wilson is making it clear, we're under assault by manipulation, by the way they're doing it in a subtle way. You see,
Exactly.
When your politicians and your teachers, when you have people of that nature, and add the media in there as well, but when you have people controlling all these things and being able to say that, okay, that this is okay, it's okay to be like this, well, then it makes it that much harder for you to try, and you actually have to play a manipulating role yourself. You're trying to manipulate to your children to show them that this is right over what is wrong. You see what I'm saying?
And I'm sorry, go ahead. My bad.
Go on.
No, I was just agreeing with you, because you're right. We kind of got to take on some of that manipulation role ourselves and start understanding the importance of images, like we had spoke about before. You know what I mean? It don't matter how many times you tell me Christ is black or something like that. If all I ever see is the image, that's all I'm gonna always think when you say Jesus. So it's the same thing. If we want our children to have these ideas, these different values, they need to see images of these things too. You know what I mean? Because we understand the body, the right side of the brain is going to absorb that more than you sitting them giving them a lecture about, no, thou should not this and thou should not that. The kid's like, I don't care about that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They've literally made us out to be that preacher, that you did not like growing up as a kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he was just saying stuff that you just could not really understand.
Right.
Whereas if something was put in your face, you got a better understanding of it.
Exactly.
Doesn't even have to come with any words.
Mm-hmm.
You put up a white Christ and just put the word love next to it. Everything's just spoken for itself.
That's it. You say so much with that image.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially to a young black impressionable child.
Right. So now you put two black men together hugging and kissing and got the word above it, just it says love, just like the image of Christ is love. It all speaks for itself. Daddy, why are you against love?
All day long.
Right.
That's it.
Daddy's not against love. What do you mean? They love each other.
Right.
I'm just saying, man.
Right.
The manipulation is just so hard. The power that manipulated power out, dehumanizing the way you've reconstructed it out to be, to where this is a beautiful thing, whereas it's a monstrous thing. It's horrible. Genocide.
Exactly.
Very much so. And we can even go back in history, because again, that you got to, like Sharif is talking about, when you dehumanize somebody. Mm-hmm. You have to make that so embedded in a person's mind that when you see that person being mistreated, the other black man, black woman being mistreated, you understand that's what's supposed to happen because that's what you were told. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you look in the paperwork in history and it states that clearly we're 3/5 of a human being, why would you treat him any differently than 3/5 of a human being? That's what it says right there in the paper. And we're taking children through school to read this stuff, nonsense, to say that he's 3/5 of a human being. So why would you treat him any other way? So you can do it and treat him like an animal because he's not a full human being. That's manipulation, but it's right up under your nose and it's written. The written word is very powerful. So that's how it just kind of happens, and we get caught up in that stuff.
Exactly. And the whole thing, again, is all about getting people to let their guard down. And of course you let your guard down, especially when you're in your home country or what have you. You're in an environment that you're comfortable in. You feel relaxed, again, giving people their everyday necessities, you know what I mean, where they feel as though, I'm free, I have freedom, I have a certain amount of choices and selections. So clearly I'm making choices on my own. But again, you don't realize that the choices have already been made and set out before you. And so really you're just operating in a bubble. You know what I'm saying? You're just operating in a bubble all day long.
This is big. It's bigger and deeper than you know. I mean, just for the simple, this gay thing has always been around.
Oh yeah.
We can go back to the
years.
We can but let's just talk about America, for instance, and forming itself, and let's go back to the great 50s and 60s and 70s. It's always been out there. It just wasn't, but why now does it have to be so exploited? You know what I mean? It's always been there, but why do we need to now exploit this so to the point that you can't get a commercial without having a gay person practically without being on there? You can't. There's certain shows that you know what I'm saying that it used to be, if they had a white show, they got a, it's a good show. Oh wow, they got a black person on there today. You know what I mean? Now it's never mind the black guy. That's just common now. You know what I mean? Now you got your gay guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're not talking about anything being gay, but you could just tell like, hello, how you doing? That he's gay one, whatever. And you don't have to say that he's gay because you're just trying to make sure, you're trying to show the world, you're trying to reconstruct it into believing into this new type of thing.
Exactly. And now Think about this though. Think about what we've been recently been coming into the awareness of with the whole thing with the population and how out of control it is. And now you begin to understand even the gay play a little more, as far as you want to promote homosexuality, you want to get behind the whole gay pride movement, because again, you're trying to control the numbers. You know, the numbers are getting out of control. So now you're looking at the gay movement as also being strategic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want people having more sex and having more babies, so I need people out here to be more gay. You know what I'm saying? So you're still using manipulation. Blacks in particular, exactly. Where you're like, you can even focus on who you want to go down that path more than others. And you're absolutely right. That's why you're seeing black men all over the place portraying themselves as homosexuals.
I mean,
you know?
I sat here last night and 3 commercials came on in a row. All 3 of them, gay men, you know what I mean? And it's just like, wow. Like, for some reason, it was like, okay, now I've never in my life seen 3 commercials come on in a row and it just pertained to 3 black people. You know what I mean? You ain't never get yourself 3. You could be watching BET. You could be watching BET and you ain't even gonna get 3 black commercials in a row.
Right.
You got 3 black commercials in a row and they're all gay? Right. Seriously?
That's not coincidence. You know what I mean?
That ain't by coincidence, by accident. Y'all did. Come on.
The real manipulation comes in when they take the commercials and you don't know for absolute certain that the men are homosexual, but they are effeminate, you see. So again, they could be straight as all get out. But as long as you have a man up there acting in an effeminate way, that's all you need to implant in the young mind that, okay, this man does not need to act masculine at any point in time. So we just need him to act a little softer, because again, that masculine man is what threatens the power structure in itself. So again,
which I love that.
I love that homosexual, but he might just be a little soft spoken.
Tone him down.
Yeah, just tone him. We just want him toned down, watered down, so that he doesn't think that he can be masculine in this world and maybe start some type of revolution.
Right.
So again, it's all manipulation.
That is very key.
Small scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Very
subtle point.
Because as I was watching the 3 commercials, the show that I was watching was the news, and you had Don Lemon on there. And he was speaking to another particular brother on there. I was going to take a picture of the 2 brothers and send them to you guys, but I didn't. But what I was going to say under the picture, now I could tell that other brother, suit and tie, regardless if he was gay or not, I can't really tell. But the way he had softened up his voice, the same way Don Lemon has his voice softened up, it didn't matter. You know what I mean? If the guy was male or not, I just knew that this is the image that America wants us to see us in.
Right.
Got to dumb it down, soften it up, like Rashad said.
Yeah.
That's the impression you want. Like, I was looking at these 2 black men on TV, and I was like, if a group of white boys walked up on them, they'd probably be like, "Yo, man, I ain't got no beef. I ain't got no beef."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And that's the impression that they want to be out there. You know what I mean? And it's just sad, man, to just dumb us down to where if you want to get that job as a newscaster, just like Don Lemon or everybody else, you got to dumb it down like that. Exactly. I went on a job interview yesterday, and I even noticed with myself as I'm speaking, I have to dumb it down a little bit. You feel what I'm saying?
Got to soften it up. Yeah.
Have to, have a little laughter. I couldn't sit there with my arms folded like,
Right.
I could do this job. This job ain't nothing, man. This ain't no problem. What's up? I got this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Couldn't be yourself.
Regardless of what it would have showed on my record, how great my skills were.
Right.
Okay, then it's because, now you have to make them feel, but even I hear it in my mind, Kenyatte, make sure you smile. You feel what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I got to make him feel, you know what I'm saying?
Comfortable.
Exactly.
Right.
So, we go through it every single day. And these people, you know what I'm saying? They put us in a position where, we feel as though we have to be this way.
And think about it. You really don't have to worry about a revolution if you have a bunch of black men out here that want to be women or that are just softened up. you don't got to worry about it, because again, that goes back to the manipulation in the programming. This is something, if you got a black man behaving this way effeminate, chances are he's been that way his entire life. And that goes back to sometimes growing up without a father, because you got all these single black men being raised by their mother. And of course, you love and aspire and respect your mom. You grow up behaving like your mom.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You got the same mannerisms. You're just as feminine. You're just as emotional, as your mom.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? So it's deep. It's deep. And again, we understand it's by plan, and they've been doing this stuff for decades. Yeah. They've been playing this game. They've got it down to a science for decades. We're just now starting to come into the awareness of it. Like we always bring out, Amos Wilson, educated brother, he's talking about this stuff in the 90s and in the 80s. We got videotapes of the brother speaking in the 80s. Yeah, 80s. You know what I mean? He knew this stuff. 30, 40 years ago, he was already, and he was learning from people.
Yeah, Neely Fuller.
Neely Fuller, exactly.
Neely Fuller was talked about in the 70s.
Bam.
So
you know what I'm saying?
To where like I don't think it shocks Neely Fuller as to where the world has come to now, what it looks like right now, because the man's seen it going in that direction.
Right.
That's a person who had his eyes open. You know what I'm saying? He's not being manipulated by the system. So he was able to say, oh, I could see, you know what I'm saying, how 30 years from now, they're gonna be some men wearing dresses. He saw that.
But yo, let's close it up. I wanted to, because I didn't want to go too long, and I did want to hit on that last paragraph.
Okay.
Did y'all? I know we were talking about the beginning part of that paragraph, and we've really been going into it.
I was gonna say I got that.
Yeah, you kind of already hit it. So just to close it out, we do want to, we always like to leave people on a positive note, and that's the way that we understand Amos Wilson did it with a lot of these sections. As he's closing them out, he always likes to leave us with a positive note. So we see all this manipulation going on. We know there's a lot of subliminal activity. We know they're trying to get you with your guard down, to get you to comply and not really realize that you're making these decisions which might be detrimental to your health and your legacy, your life, your children. But there's a way to combat it. And I just wanted to read that last section. It says, only by basing their behavioral orientation on their own African history, culture, values, interests, consciousness, and identity can Blacks prevent their behavioral manipulation by self-serving whites and act under the influence of their own self-generated enhanced power. So we've got to turn back to our culture. We've got to become realigned with our values. We have to take an interest in knowledge of self and understanding who and what we are as a people. And it's by coming into this knowledge that we can prepare ourselves and not be influenced by these outside sources that are trying to get us to do what they want us to do or get us to comply with their system, which might not be in our interest. So I thought that was pretty dope. I'm sorry.
But it's just that this manipulating power is just so deep. I mean, the buck has been passed from the white supremacy on down to the Negro that just willing to do what the master tells them to do.
Yeah.
To where, you have all these politicians. I mean, once again, it's hard to reach the youth when the politicians, the teachers, the preachers, these are a lot of people that you basically always grew up looking up to, other than your mother and your father. Mm-hmm. But now these people right here either telling you that this is the right way to go here, this way, or they don't say anything at all.
Right.
Either way, they're both bad.
Right.
You need people to tell you that this is the way to go.
And I would argue that even more than that, you really need the music and the television and all these other forms of media that the young youth are really engaged in, because to a great degree, they're not listening to us as much as the parents. They're not listening to the preachers if the preachers are talking about, thou shalt not do this and thou shalt not do that, but they do listen to that music. They do listen to those videos. They are on that social media, and that's consuming their attention all day long, to the point where this is what's telling them, giving them their instructions for the future, what to do and what not to do. It's coming through all those different mediums. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, as far as, yes, with your pastors and your leaders, but also we can't forget about the art, because art is all right side brain. And that's just, again, that's why advertisers, they focus on art, because they know how to get to that part of the brain that you're just not going to, put up any resistance. You're just going to accept it.
Right.
So we've got to kind of, again, and you made the point, Kenyatte, earlier on, we really have to figure out some of these techniques and use them to our advantage, but in a good way. Let's put some positive images in your mind. Let's put images of strong Black men and strong Black women and strong black families. Put that into people's mind. Let's see that, because that's really, seeing these things and believing in these things is what's going to change the tide. You know what I mean? Think about it. So that's that. Did anybody have anything that they want to say, or
Oh, that's cool.
I think we covered it.
I think we pretty much did cover it. I know next week we're going to be covering again the summary, which will be the closeout of the first chapter, which has been a long chapter, but there has been a lot of information. Like you had stated earlier, Rashad, it's so important to really just go through this bit by bit, as opposed to rushing through it, because there's so much to cover and there's so much that we need to know. So next week, we'll be going over the summary, which is white domination and Black subordination. But until then, we enjoy you, brothers and sisters, for tuning in. We hope that you tune in next week to check out that chapter. And that's pretty much all I got to say. I think we lost K Boogie. Where'd he go? Here we go. All right. Well, we saying peace to everyone. Anybody got anything, last words they want to say?
Man, know thyself.
Man, know thyself. I love that.
It.
Peace. Let's do it. Until next time, we out of here.
Peace.
Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves.
In what way?
A knowledge of self.